Russian off calls to resign within his sense. He's lost his touch with Canadians. The national mood has sunk since the pandemic. People are cranky about the balloon cost of food, fuel, housing. Lately, things are about to get worse. Everyone here knows the U.S. is by far our largest trading partner. Donald Trump's threat to levy 25% tariff on all Canadian goods. Trudeau's sunny ways just didn't times. One wagon Crestwell Road will become with disagreement on legs. But Justin Trudeau is, as he says, a fighter. Ahead of Christmas, he launched a plan to show hard-pressed Canadians that he's tough man in Asia. He temporarily cut taxes on so-called holiday essentials, toys, takeout meals, beer, wine. And he also promised to mail a $250 check to every local Canadian individually. Development Finance Minister Christian Freeland to deliver the details, including the cost of the autumn statement of the government's official economic priorities in Parliament. But with the entire political media establishment watching, Christian Freeland is also Deputy Prime Minister and one of Trudeau's closest allies. It's unexplicit. She refused to endorse the plan. Instead, she did. And her resignation letter was excoriating. It said, we need to take Donald Trump's aggressive economic nationalism seriously, implying that Trudeau wasn't taking it seriously. She wasn't done. The government needs to issue, quote, costly political gimmies, which we can ill afford and which make Canadians doubt that we recognize the gravity of the moment. They know when we are working for them, and they equally know when we are focused on ourselves. Ouch. The letter stopped the nation, and Justin Trudeau's premiership its tracks. There's relief for many that he's finally going, but frustration too. The process of replacing him is slow. His party will take weeks to choose a new leader, then there will be an election campaign. Ottawa will be self-absorbed for months. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is days away from a return to power. His threats have grown. His downtime of somehow absorbing Canada into the United States. There's a snowball's chance in hell that will happen, Justin Trudeau says, but his decision in clinging to office long after Canadians were done with him does leave the country exposed.
Neil Brazil. And finally, we're in Finland, where the severing of underwater electricity cables over Christmas put the country's new status as a NATO member to the test. An investigation is underway as authorities believe the vessel which cut the cables is part of Russia's so-called Shadow Fleet, made up of ships said to be transporting cargo Russian oil. The Emilia yachts are spent Christmas in the November this summer.
Finnish authorities are still investigating whether Russian sanctions have been breached, But in the meantime, they have announced that the equipment on board the ship is so faulty that it won't be allowed to leave port until the problems have been fixed. It was anchored outside of my town for several days while the authorities figured out what to do next. News of the Russian shadow fleet did not come as a surprise to Finns. Shadow ships have been top of the news agenda for months on Finnish news networks, with several incidents reported across the Baltic Sea, with one linked to a Chinese freighter. But this time, in a break with its previous approach, which was more cautious, the Finnish government's response to Eagle S was immediate and had some of the most public holidays in Europe. Why not is respected? There's a reason the country often tops the work-life balance lists. And Christmas is the main time people relax. Even Prime Minister Petteri Orpo would have been expected to take a step back from the public eye for a few days to recharge his batteries. Instead, he held an international press conference on Boxing Day. This would have been unthinkable only a couple of years ago. A new NATO membership and nearly 3 years of war in Europe has bolstered Finland's confidence in itself and its allies. Since joining NATO last year, Finland has seen an influx of foreign soldiers, especially American ones. They have been welcomed with joy and curiosity to the army bases across the country. Suddenly, all American soldiers have become minor celebrities with their every move analysed, as if they've come straight from Hollywood. Local papers eagerly report on how these young men order whiskey instead of beer at the pub, and they eat 2 main meals instead of just one. And Eagle S has become a tourist trap too, bringing in profit. Over the last few weeks, Finns have travelled to the coastline to take a look at it. Footfall has been so high that a cafe nearby, which is usually only open in the summer, has decided to open its doors to serve coffee and buns to all the customers making the pilgrimage to view the curious case of the Russian shadow ship. But paranoia is also setting in. There are daily stories of more Russian ships spotted in various parts of the Baltic Sea. Finns feel like they are not safe from Russian sabotage on land, air, and at sea, plane jamming, underwater cable damage, and shadow ships. It's like living in a spy film. Meanwhile, the Kremlin has said Finland's seizure of the ship was of little concern to it. Further sabotage is only expected, but Finland is expecting NATO to help, and the alliance has duly announced new patrols in the Baltic region. This is the new reality for a country that shares more than 800 miles of its border with Russia. Out again on my daily dog walk, my hands are turning red, a sign that it's time to return home. I whistle, and my dog comes running back to me. "Good boy," he said, scratching his ear. Normal life continues in Kirkkonummi, but beneath the surface, Finns are noticeably on edge.
Emilia Jansson. And that's all for today, but you can hear more stories on the From Our Own Correspondent podcast on BBC Sounds, including a dispatch on the challenges faced by the Vice President as Donald Trump returns to the White House. We'll be back again next Saturday morning. Do join us.
From Our Own Correspondent was presented by KJP. The producer was Serena Tan. After the midday news, it'll be time for iPods.
Have you heard of the Ink Black Heart?
On BBC iPlayer.
One of the fans is stalking your mum. Someone who knows me. They use the name Anime.
I know who that is. Strike is my life. Tales.
We're gonna have to get aggressive about all that suspects. Anonymous, you can say anything.
You can actually help me fix this.
Not saying anything.
Do not screw this one.
Get out! Robin!
Strike the Ink Black Heart.
You can give up. Fine.
Watch on BBC iPlayer.
BBC News at midday. Chancellor Rachel Reeves says she's reached agreements worth around £600 million to the UK economy over the next 5 years during her visit to China, as Reeves met the Chinese Vice Premier, He Lifeng, in Beijing, where they discussed trade and investment opportunities. The Chancellor said both countries were committed to regular dialogues to foster a good working relationship.
As two major economies, we discuss our respective roles in international trade. Given global interconnections, many of the challenges that we face today, such as climate change and support for the world's poorest nations, cannot be tackled
hitting a 16-year high and a fall value of the pound. The Conservative MP Tom Tugendhat was critical of the timing of her business.
She's going at a time when her budget has sapped the economy, we've got debt rates going up, and she looks like she's going with a begging bowl, not with a trading deal. And that's a real problem, because actually it makes the state look more vulnerable, and others around the world can see it too.
California's governor has called for an independent investigation into how critical fire hydrants ran out of water and to be paired with the fight against the wildfires which have been raging in Los Angeles. More evacuation orders have been issued as emergency teams continue to work to combat the fires. Police have since they began on Tuesday. Greg Champion lived in the Pacific Palisades area, which has been practically reduced to rubble. He said his home and business properties were all destroyed. His wife, 3 daughters, and pet dogs are all safe.
My wife had 2 generations worth of heirlooms. I had Hollywood and sports memorabilia. My daughters each have their room set up specifically for how little girls have their room set up. All 3 different personalities, all 3 different things going on. All that's wonderful. We think, oh my God, that's irreplaceable. But there was not one death in the Pacific Palisades fire, which is absolute godshot miracle.
Police are continuing their search into sisters who went missing in Aberdeen. Rising Henrietta Christine Burkhardt and Jordan's were last seen walking by the River Dee in the early hours of Tuesday morning. Yesterday, a major search involved boats and a helicopter. Temperatures in the area dropped to -5 Celsius overnight. Rescue boats from Germany are trying to control an oil tanker which ran adrift off its northern coast. The country's foreign minister said the vessel was operating as part of Russia's clandestine Shadow Fleet, which had brought a threat to European security. Russia hasn't commented. A study suggests the proportion of 25 to 34-year-olds living with their parents in the UK has risen by more than a third in just under 2 decades. The Institute for Fiscal Studies says the share of this age group living at home was 18% last year, up from 13% in 2006. David Sturrock is the author of the report and a senior research economist at the IFS. He says the cost of housing is a significant.
What we see is that now about 7 million people of this age group, 25% more, are living with their parents. That's about 500 million more. That means that the rate that is about 6. Rates vary across the country, the growth is varied across the country. It seems to be particularly rapid in places in the country where house prices have risen the most.
David Mills said it was great to be back after being appointed Everton manager for a second time. The 61-year-old has signed a 2.5-year contract at Goodison Park following the sacking of Sean Dyche on Thursday. Everton are 16th in the Premier League, 1 point clear of relegation from the This is BBC Radio. I'm Robert Smith.
Hello, a new report said how there's unable struck by people who are struggling to pay their houses and have no security in their own homes. But less than 3 weeks to go before the £1,100 penalty central court right public and tax the government has made a start on its manifesto promise to provide free collective clubs and deputising children's well-being. Dr. Sergio promised on Wednesday and will give every parent with a child in the state finance the legal right to a far-far retro club for children who it is only a start. Just 750 money of the nearly 17,000 people it's likely to make the children who are necessarily to save parents money and for one after childcare for parents who work. The bill will also open up for a brand new identity claiming those costing
Pre-vetted the program we rolled out in April, but instead become more predictable based on earlier got easier to hit the mile expected. The part of Project Christmas was public all money to what do they have to do to moving at the pace of the announcement here between extra funding for breakfast clubs and budgets, and now we're legislating for it this week in Parliament so that we can roll this out across every school so that every child, no matter what their background,